Hey guys, and welcome to our review of Waves, directed by Trey Edward Schultz, starring Kelvin Harrison Jr., Taylor Russell, Sterling K. Brown, Renee Elise Goldsberry, Lucas Hedges, and Alexa Demi. My name is Scott Ellis. I'm joined here by Phil Clark.
What's going on, gentlemen?
Not too much. Also joining us is Adam Franey.
I'm ready to ride the wave, man. I'm ready,
Waves
baby.
from A24.
Oh,
The
Goats.
Goat Studio. We saw this at TIFF a little while back.
a minute ago.
Phil, can you give us a synopsis, brief
can.
synopsis?
Brief synopsis of
Waves.
Waves. The epic emotional journey of a suburban African-American family led by a well-intentioned but domineering father as they navigate love, forgiveness, and coming together in the aftermath of a loss.
Oh, there's a loss.
That's a good synopsis. That's why I stole it off Letterboxd. Shout out Letterboxd.
Follow up to It Comes at Night from Trey Edward Schultz.
Indeed.
Adam, let's start with you. What are your thoughts about Waves?
Waves of sweat have come over me from all the pressure I'm under. What are my thoughts, eh?
Yes.
Well, Scott and Phil and Switty, wherever you are, and Tim, shouts out. I liked Waves a good deal.
Glowing.
I did not love Waves. I certainly didn't dislike it. I thought it was good. It's
Tell us more.
No. Goodbye. I thought it looked gorgeous. Beautifully shot.
Goes without saying.
Great performances.
Excellent, one might say.
I mean, Mr. Sterling K. Brown was phenomenal.
Yes.
Fucking loved him in it.
Yeah, he was great. He was sterling.
Lucas Hedges was absurd. Absurdly awkward. Quite hilarious.
Great comedic talent.
Indeed. I think it was intentional comedic talent.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. I loved the soundtrack. This, I believe, I turned to my girlfriend, shouts out to Emily after this was over, we saw it together, and said, if I were to curate a soundtrack for a movie, this would be it. Frank Ocean, my favorite singer. You got Kanye, my favorite rapper. You got Kendrick Lamar. We got it all.
I believe it was also Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross
On
did
the
soundtrack score.
Yeah, the score was good as well. Trent Reznor's like one of my favorite composers. Obviously, great musician as well.
Trey Edward Schultz said in the Q&A that when he wrote the script for this film that he had the songs already picked out that fit with the development of what was happening with the characters and what they were feeling. So as the actors were reading the script, they could sort of access the songs and listen to the songs while they're reading the scenes, and it would sort of put them in that mind state. So that was a really interesting way of integrating the music in this film.
Absolutely. I would have done the same. Like I said, I approve, Trey. You made a movie I could have made, would have made, not could have.
If you had talent.
If I had talent and resources. Talent. I liked it. Like, the reason I didn't fully love it is it felt very long, and it wasn't. I thought it was 3 hours going in. I thought it was 3 hours walking out, and then I googled it, and it was like 2:10 or something.
Right.
And yeah, I feel like it is a negative because, without spoiling anything, there's like certainly a shift, right?
There is a shift that happens
in the narrative, and I think I was a lot more invested in the first half before the shift, and I was a lot less invested in the second half of the movie. Not that it was like terrible or anything, but I was like, God, like, are you gonna get back to the like meat, like the really crazy shit that went down? And it was more like dealing with the aftermath.
Right.
It felt like a mini or like limited series, like shrunk into a movie.
2 hours, yeah.
That's really what it feels like to me. Like, I feel like this could have been easily like a 7-episode thing or something, right?
Yeah. Could have been like Euphoria or something.
Yeah, like it literally feels like it was. Like I'm convinced there's like hours and hours of this out there, and they cut it to a movie, which is normally like the opposite. I love that A24. I have to always say, I love that they're just green lighting these movies.
The best.
Oh, they're the best. Like, no one
The
makes domestic family dramas, and they're just like, yeah, do it.
They don't actually do a ton of originals, I guess. Like, it's just more so they just support, like, artists come to them
Right.
for, like, distribution and funding, and they help them out. And it's
Mhm.
like someone like a Trey Edward Schultz comes to them, you know, after was it Krisha?
Yeah.
So he did that, and then, you know, they produced It Comes at Night, right?
Yep.
And then clearly they're curating these artists and
That's what
allowing
they're
them to do what they want to do and just supporting them. I think they're the best.
They're like a GoFundMe for like
Kickstarter.
independent
Yeah.
auteurs. It's like, if you can like scrounge together enough pennies to make a movie and it's good, we'll finance your like career.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, so I don't want to say like I didn't like it. I very much enjoyed it. I just, there's a lot of hype going in, like
The
after,
shift put you off.
yeah, Telluride also, there's like a lot of 5 out of 5s
Right.
on Letterboxd
People
and
were
stuff.
loving it.
People saying it's like life changing, and I don't know, the shift just I didn't sit the greatest with me.
Hmm.
But I really like performances, music, like cinematography. I don't have a lot of bad to say. Like, I still enjoyed it. Just could have been done a little.
Phil, what are your thoughts about Waves? How did you feel?
I agree with you that I felt it was a little long.
Okay, Scott, what did you think?
But unlike you, I did love it.
Oh.
You talked about how like the first story there's like a lot of meat, and then in the second story you didn't feel as like invested with it. And initially I agreed with you. Like, I felt like it was like that.
At first,
After that shift happens, you feel like it's a bit jarring
the
for
air
the
got
first.
pulled out.
Yeah.
It was like,
Mhm.
It's like kind of
tension got
it's a little
dispersed.
bizarre for
I'll
like
compare it to another movie after.
20 minutes.
I don't want to spoil it.
But like the longer I was in that second story, the more I was enjoying it, and like the meat of the first story kind of came back in like a very different way. I thought
I
Sterling K.
understand.
Brown was sensational.
Like Oscar nom? Can we
Yeah.
ask that question?
I would say I would give it to him.
Blew me away in this movie.
Yeah, I would.
I love you, Sterling.
He was
If you're watching.
fantastic.
I don't know how many people will see this movie.
No.
It's
That's
hard,
a-
so
that's
hard
the
to
issue.
predict the
Yeah.
Oscar races and
Yeah,
who gets elevated and who kind of falls to the wayside. You never know. But I thought he was fantastic.
he was really sensational in this. I loved the whole family. I thought Renee Elise Goldsberry is the girlfriend from the first half of the movie. Is that
That's Alexa Demi, is the
Alexa
girlfriend.
Demi, okay.
That's the mother.
yeah?
Which I feel like I've seen her before, but I don't think I actually have.
She was actually
Seemed
in
very familiar.
Alexa Demi was in Euphoria, which is kind of
Alexa, I meant the mother.
The
I've
mother,
seen the mother.
yeah.
I feel like I've seen the mother
Yeah.
somewhere, but I don't think I have. I don't know.
that scene with her and the three of them in the doorway was just brutal for me. Like, just absolutely brutal. I found this movie very compelling. I found it very emotional. It was like
Dark.
shockingly dark and also shockingly like optimistic at the end. I
Yeah,
guess
it's really
I
good.
really enjoyed like I don't know
It's an interesting
I don't know how
contrast.
else to like talk about it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought Lucas Hedges brought like a nice element too, because he was like such a weird character, and like to see him go on this journey and like get pushed by this girl, and it's because it is really like in that second half, it's not really about the family anymore. It's more about Lucas Hedges. He kind of gets
Yeah.
brought in, and it's like very focused on his story, and then it kind of ties back into the family narrative. I guess at the end of it, more so. Like there's stuff going on throughout, but it is very Lucas
Yeah.
Hedges heavy, and I thought he was really good for what he had to do in that movie, if that makes sense. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Don't know what else to talk about.
I'll jump in. I really enjoyed this film as well. I went in expecting some misty eyes. I didn't quite get that. But
That's an issue I had too. I didn't cry.
yeah, I definitely felt.
Onion chop.
Oh.
You know, in the first half, this movie is like, you know, it's like Good Time or something. It's like super tension filled. Like it just ramps up
Oof.
the sort of anxiety through the first half. Acting was excellent all around. I thought everyone was great. Lucas Hedges was pretty hilarious. Comedic relief, which I felt like it needed a little bit of that.
Yeah.
You know, I think for the audience to sort of laugh at some of his first early interactions with Taylor Russell's character, the sister. I thought that really sort of, brought some levity to it because it was
much needed levity.
just pure anxiety for the first half. And I do think that
Very
tonal
real.
shift, which we'll talk about in spoilers, that tonal shift, it did feel weird at first. I was like, oh, this is, okay, we're going this way. But then as it sort of developed, I was like, oh, okay, I can see what we're going for here, and I like this. It's different.
Yeah.
It's not a sort of like, traditional sort of narrative structure to a film. Like normally you would just follow, Kelvin Harrison Jr.'s character this whole time,
Right.
and it seemed like he was going to be the focus of the protagonist or whatever.
Because he's so heavily involved in the first half, and it's like with that tension, it's just like all on him.
Yeah, like you would assume, let's say, a redemption arc in the second half. In
Yeah.
the second half, in a typical film, but this film does not
Do that.
indulge the viewer in that narrative.
Season
So
1.
I actually appreciate that sort of change from the sort of the typical, yeah, the visuals were absolutely stunning. Just the neon lights and just the framing of it, I don't know, it was amazing.
That opening, like 360 inside the car,
Yeah.
like
Which
on
they-
that sunny bridge.
They touched a second time in the second half, mirroring it with Lucas Hedges and what's her name, Taylor
Yes.
Russell's character. They
Yeah.
did the same kind of like
Yeah.
thing there. Yeah, there's just some really cool, interesting, director shots in it. Soundtrack was crazy. I do, like I mentioned earlier about how it was sort of built into the script. I just think it worked. It totally worked. Like you can imagine like when Kelvin Harrison Jr. was like driving to like the party or whatever, and I'm trying to remember what, like if it was a Kanye song or if it was like just some really intense like rap song. I don't know.
After he like storms out.
Yes.
I am a god. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's
Assassin's Creed trailer.
literally, I'm a god. I don't know. Like it just fits so perfectly with the scene.
That bonfire when he's screaming Kendrick, I'm just like,
Yeah.
in the audience, like trying not to like disturb anyone, but I'm like, fuck.
It's like
Yeah, I don't know. It just
communicating
fits so
Yeah.
perfectly.
perfectly. Yeah.
And I don't know. It was very effective. Like I said, the only downside is just the emotional hits. They were good, but they weren't. It didn't like just smash me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. don't
I
know
wanted
why.
to be smashed, but by this emotion, and
wanted to
I
get
thought it was
gutted.
solid. I thought it was very solid,
Yeah.
and I think the elements that Trey Edward Schultz brought to it definitely elevated it from like a typical.
I got smashed.
Yeah, you got.
You were
I got
gutted.
smashed.
Like a fish.
Yeah.
He just.
I
Gotcha.
mean, I gotta say, Phil, it smells like I'm smelling a 5 coming from you. I'm smelling a little.
No, it was a little long. I do agree
Okay.
with you. It did feel.
It,
I was shocked. It was only 2 hours and 10 minutes. If that makes sense. Like we got out of the theater. I was like, I think it was like
the pacing was a
a
bit
10 a.m.
drawn
show,
out.
and it was like, oh my god, it's 12. Like what?
It's not 5.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a point after the first half where it felt long, and I was like, oh, like this is how it's gonna like wrap up, and then it went another hour.
Yeah.
You know
Yes.
what I mean?
To me, and
It's like
maybe it'll change on a rewatch now that I'm expecting it. But on a first watch, it was like, but like
they
took the
keep
steam
going.
away.
They keep going with this story with the sister. They just
Mhm.
kept going with it, and I was like, oh, I thought this was gonna like sort of wrap up neatly here,
Yeah.
but yes, that expectation kind of made it feel longer because of our expectations of the
Mhm.
film,
I
right?
felt like an hour-long epilogue
Right.
where like it could have just like been an epilogue. Not
It's
a
like I said,
second
it's like
half.
that would have been the typical
Would've
narrative would have been to end it there, and so I kind of
True.
appreciate the kind of like, I don't know, the kind of mix up, So
It was unique.
yeah,
Can't deny that.
let's give our ratings. I'm gonna start off solid. It's a solid 4. It's a 4 to 5.
I'm giving it a heavy 4.
Holy
Heavy 4.
shit! I'm going solid 4.
Mm.
Not
Nice.
heavy. Not heavy. Just a 4.
Well, is there anything we can talk spoilers?
Holy
You've been warned if you haven't seen Waves yet.
Turn it off now.
Should we
I
start?
wouldn't want to be spoiled.
We should start with the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, bud.
So, brother, sister,
Uh huh.
father, and stepmother is the family dynamic that we're focused on
Indeed.
throughout the movie. And due to a bicep tear and having to take painkillers for that, you see the son kind of trail off his life, and His
It's a
girlfriend.
downward spiral.
His girlfriend's pregnant, and he doesn't want her to have it. She wants to keep it.
Culminates in an argument.
He gets in an argument. They break up. He's just popping painkillers. Hears about this party on prom night. Sees her on Instagram.
Some other guy.
Some other dude drives over to the party.
So real.
Spazzes.
Spazzes, freaks out. Takes her to the garage, and they're screaming at each other. And then he just goes and hits her, and then she falls to the ground, smacks her
Hits
head,
her head.
off the concrete, and she starts bleeding out. And then the door opens because they hear the scream. Someone sees him over her body, and then he just bolts. And then after that, you just see sirens, and it's just chaos. And then it kind of cuts and fades, and it cuts into the sister's life. And they're sitting in a courtroom listening to the judge read out the sentence for murder or manslaughter. I forget what it was.
The second half just kind of goes into the sisters, sort of how. In the first half, you don't really see much of the sister.
No, it's mainly focused on the
Focused
brother.
on the brother. And the second half, it really delves into sort of, the family and her also dealing with the aftermath of this. And sort of...
She was at this party. She sees her brother. She blames herself for
Coming
this
to terms with
happening.
it.
Yeah. It was...
And Lucas Hedges sort of comes into it, I feel like, as a vehicle to sort of help her get over that, sort of, her guilt over it.
But not
through his story.
Yeah.
And then she sort of comes to this realization.
Which is what I really liked about it, because it wasn't like he's like, oh, you should not feel bad. It's not your. They don't take a direct approach. They kind of let his story play out, and she kind of guides him through that and comes to her own realization of
by helping him.
By helping him, she kind of grows, which I thought was much more impactful than if he's like.
Felt very realistic.
Don't be guilty. You know what I mean? It felt very touching.
The whole time in the first half, I kept thinking when the way he the brother would text Alexa Demi's character. I'm like, dude, no.
Don't send it.
No.
Yeah.
Don't send it, bro.
You're too clingy. I don't know. It's
just
it's just so anxiety. He's texting all caps. I'm just like, oh, bro, killing me right now. You're digging a hole for yourself.
Yeah, you're just watching him slip, and you're just trying
deeper
to help
and deeper.
him.
Yeah.
I feel like Sterling K. Brown. You're like, no, I want to help you. Stop making these mistakes. And it was interesting, the theme of morality, and how if you see guy, man kills girlfriend on the news, it's oh, monster, kill him instantly. He's should be in jail forever. You feel nothing. But then in a movie where you're following how that would happen in real life, you feel the sympathy and things like that. Not saying it's right at all, obviously.
It just it creates empathy, which is just creates an understanding of maybe why.
Yeah, how a human being.
Not that you agree with it, but why you can understand a bit more that way.
It's not just reading off a paper, murder. Okay, murderer. It's no.
Killed girlfriend. You're okay, you instantly come to these preconceived notions of what this person might be or why they would have done it. But
the way Trey Edward Schultz can portray how a human being can do that,
this moral gray area, right?
Yeah, it's just, I really like that.
And from Sterling, talk about Sterling K. Brown a little bit, at the beginning of the movie, he's this hard-ass dad. He's pushing his son to do this,
right.
teaching him you have to work twice as hard to get half as far in this world. You need to be, he's very disciplined, very hard on his son. And then this happens, and he's just devastated. And he
questions himself.
Questions his methods. Did I do this? Is this my fault?
Was I too hard on him? Yeah, all that stuff.
And that scene where him and his daughter go fishing at the end of the movie.
Great. That was probably one of the better emotional moments in this film, of course.
That was brutal.
Yeah, it was great.
That's the Oscar clip if he gets nominated.
Yeah.
And then they show a little clip.
Yeah.
They're showing
100%.
that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was great.
It was fantastic. That's what floored me. I was like, this is...
Someone was cutting onions?
Someone was cutting
Trey
onions.
himself was literally there you have it.
I don't have much else to say.
Waves.
I think I'll do it. Check it out when it becomes available. I don't know when or where or how.
November, limited theater release.
Check it out. Definitely worth a watch. Yeah, Phil, where can people find you?
Find me on Letterboxd at Wicked Swami.
You can find me on Twitter at Franey25 and on Instagram and Letterboxd at UprealAdam.
Find myself on Letterboxd at UprealScott as well. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at UprealA Podcast, As well, leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below in the comment section to join our discussion. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. And as always, keep it real.